The Arabian Racehorse Podcast with Debbie Burst and Gary Capel.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Arabian Racing Podcast. This week we're going to review our first visit to Chelmsford City, where we had a clear win by Winasa. Obviously she wasn't winning out of turn and she pulled well clear. What did you think of that race, Gary?
Yeah, she certainly wasn't winning out of turn, was she? She shaped, particularly on a debut, I think, as though that there was quite a lot of ability there. Obviously, she went back to Wolverhampton the time after that, and just got run out of it close home as well. I just like the way that this horse travels through her races, I must admit. She's got that gear change as well. And at Chelmsford the other day, it quickly carried her clear. She continues to flash her tail a little bit, but it's really not stopping her going forward, that is for sure. And obviously, there were quite a few inexperienced horses in behind her, but I was very taken with what James Owen said about her after the race, and obviously she won very easily by 6 lengths in the end. And yes, it'll be interesting to see how she progresses next year, what the exact plan will be for her. I'm not too sure whether there's going to be any more races for her this year. I would perhaps doubt, but she's definitely a filly that's certainly above average, I think it's fair to say, and be interesting to see how her career progresses.
Are there any there that you look forward to seeing come out again once they've had that experience?
Yeah, I think quite a few of them might end up being sort of handicap projects. Niall Al-Shiba, I think that there's definitely a race with him to be won next year. I think he's shown more than enough the last few runs to indicate that that he'll be capable of winning a race next year. I mean, again, he's another horse who can show early pace in his race as well, which is obviously going to be an asset and another winter on his back. I think we'll hopefully see him sort of develop. The second horse is the obvious one, I suppose, Balkis, who again just got a little bit outpaced, sort of kept on again and then got briefly outpaced again and had really no chance with the winner in the final furlong. But I thought that there was a lot to like about that for a debutante's effort, and obviously going clear from some horses that had got a bit of experience, which obviously she hadn't. So, I think 2 nice fillies. I'd be interested to see where. I mean, again, I should imagine they'll just try and get a win into Balkis sooner rather than later. But I don't think this experience will be lost on her for sure. I'd say most of the others in behind, I think quite a few of them perhaps look as though they might be handicap projects for next season.
Absolutely, and we'll be returning to Chelmsford for another Bailey's Horsefeed sponsored race later on towards the end of next week. However, after that race, I spoke to James, and here's what he had to say.
Good run from her.
Good run, and listen, she got beaten 2 maidens. She's actually bumped into quite nice horses in both maidens. That the first maiden, that horse will go on. I was a bit disappointed she didn't win first time out, but she said 2 more experienced runs and won nicely tonight. She's beat inexperienced rivals, but she's done it well. Yeah. And we'll put her away next year. She's the fastest Arab I've ever had.
Really?
She'd travel behind horses, and she'll strengthen up. Her sister strengthened up 4 to 5. Yeah. She'd have more class than Al-Aziza. Yeah. And she's not a bad stick herself. Like she's got a great mind to her. We just put the cheek piece on her just in case. She fell out in front, and I think they helped her, because you can't go using the stick on this filly. She's showing that with her tail. Yeah. But Jack hasn't ridden many Arabs this time, but he said that's the nicest one he's ridden. So hopefully she's bigger and better things for her next season.
Well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
If we now look at the 0 to 65 Zayn Arabians handicap, that's going to give us a lot of pointers for our forthcoming race, which we've got returning to Wolverhampton, which is the Racing to School Inspiring Young Minds 0 to 60 handicap. Obviously, it's the same course. There's a slight discrepancy in distance. Obviously, the Zayn Arabians handicap was over a mile, and this forthcoming race is just short of 1 mile and 2 furlongs. What do we think that we can draw from that race looking ahead?
Yeah, we had 8 of the 12-strong field who reoppose each other in this particular race. Obviously, Zayn's Hyperion fared best of those that ran in that race, and that was only his, I think, 4th career start, wasn't it, on that occasion. He looks as though he's slowly beginning to get the hang of things. There wasn't a huge amount on his previous runs to indicate he was going to run quite so well on this occasion, but he perhaps outperformed expectation, perhaps a little bit. Same comments really, I suppose, for Jemana Athbar, who was another who hadn't showed a huge amount going into that race at Wolverhampton, but both seemed to take big steps forward. So I've just sided with Zane's Hyperion. I've gone for the younger horses over some of the more experienced horses who perhaps might look well handicapped coming into this race. We'll perhaps touch on those in a moment. But yeah, I've gone for Zane's Hyperion. Antonia Peck keeps the rider. She seemed to get a good tune out of Zane's Hyperion in the home straight. Obviously, it's slightly further at Wolverhampton on Monday afternoon, and that should probably suit Jemana Athbar as well, who ran on quite well in the closing stages of that race. Whilst Seraphim Forte obviously finished fourth, it would be interesting to see if they perhaps try slightly different tactics with that horse, because he was held up and he took up the running. He's got the pace to lead this horse, I think, so it'll be interesting to see whether they perhaps try and lead on him. And then you've got the old guard. I say the old with Bin Al-Ree. He's not actually that old, is he? But it seems to have been that he's been around for ages. He might do his old trick of running on quite well in the closing stages. He seems to like doing that. Popstar is reunited with Martin Dwyer. Obviously, was on board when this horse won when she won at Newbury last season in the big 7 furlong handicap. We know Zane's Achilles is definitely well treated if he can put it all together, if the race is run to suit him, which it might be. Probably need to see a bit more from Gurko the Tunnel, who hasn't really sort of showed a huge amount since coming over here to the UK, but is still likely enough race to think that there may well be a bit of improvement to come. To Samawat has changed yards, and obviously that horse made the running in that Wolverhampton race where so many of them ran the other day. So I expect Zane's Hyperion to uphold the form. The Crayon horses down at the bottom for Nicky Malcolm probably need to step up a bit on what we've seen from them thus far. But again, in Master Bin Crayon's case, is likely enough race to think that he might improve a little bit. K-Median obviously needs to take a bit of a step forward as well. I suppose that one, Stable Companion Kayak, is quite interesting because obviously he looks to have taken a bit of a step forward this campaign. Obviously he was second over a little bit further here last time out, but he'd shaped prior to that in a much better race, as though this handicap mark was going to be okay for him. So just he's probably one of the pace ankles as well. I should imagine Serena Brotherton will try and get him quite handy. It's just a case of whether he can stay there in this type of grade, because ultimately, as in keeping with his breeding, he probably does want a little bit further than this.
Couldn't agree more. And obviously the second he ran the last time here over 1.5 miles certainly shows that he's well capable of a stamina testing trip. To go back to that 0 to 65 race, when they came into the straight, Zane's Hyperion got squeezed up on the rail by D'Artagnan, who was weakening back. So I think you're absolutely right. I think he certainly has some strong claims here. And again, with Seraphim Forte, I would think that, as you say, different tactics might be employed. He's such a likeable little horse. I like the way that he really sticks his head out and really tries. And, to be fair, for a 3-year-old to be carrying, be at the head of the weights, that's quite a big ask. But, obviously it's been a bit of a funny season this year, and we've got a mix of unexposed sort of horses which are still probably finding their distances apart from anything else, and older horses like Zane's Achilles, who is never a trip that suited him. So it would be lovely to see him win, because obviously it's going to be his last season racing. But again, it's a real mix here of the older and the younger horses.
Yeah, and I suppose the last few seasons, these type of races have usually tended to go to the younger brigade. I'm trying to think of the name of the Bill Smith horse that won a similar sort of handicap at Wolverhampton. Yeah, who won a similar sort of handicap around about the same sort of distance towards the back end of last season. So nowadays it would appear as though there's a little bit of a changing of the guard, and the way that these races have been, whether they're panning out, is perhaps that the lesser exposed horses seem to be perhaps coming to the fore a little bit. I mean, we mentioned Seraphim Forte. It's obviously he's got the advantage that Ali Shadwick probably knows him a bit better than some of the other riders riding in this race on their respective mounts, because I should imagine he's ridden him quite a bit at home. And back to Zane's Achilles, obviously, I think this might well be his final career start, whether they might take him one race. I'm not sure there is, and perhaps another race that might suit him before the season is out. But he's been a grand servant to Connections, and obviously, gave the owner that big win at Newbury on Dubai Day a couple of years ago when Harry Bentley rode him to victory.
This race is sponsored by Racing to School in association with Emirates Breeders. And Racing to School has done quite a lot of work with Arrow over the years. They've been with an exercise at Dubai Day. They came to our last race of the season last year with Lingfield. So I had a chat with their programme manager, Ollie McPhail.
Racing to School and the Arabian Racing Organisation, we've been working together now for a number of years. It's fantastic for us to have your support. Allows us to increase awareness of Arabian racing to the young people we work with across both our education and riders programmes. Look, as everyone in the industry has had to do in recent times, we've had to adapt how we work. Currently, we're running our educational visits on non-race days. We were up at Aintree actually and Musselburgh last week. Live racing always adds a huge amount, but there's still plenty of learning that can take place right across the race course. And at the moment, with the health and safety guidance schools are asked to consider for educational visits, the outdoor nature of our trips and low numbers of people on site mean they've been working really well. Still enable the children to have a meaningful learning experience. To make up for the lack of the real thing, actually, we've introduced a new activity using our mechanical horses that actually give the students a chance to experience what it's like to ride a racehorse. The charity will be 20 years old next year. We're certainly looking forward to getting back on track when the restrictions are lifted and working with the Arabian Racing Organisation across a number of your fixtures to increase awareness of the career opportunities within the sport.
It's good to hear from Ollie. I had a hard job finding a picture of him, but for every year for the last 4 years, we spend a day at Newmarket Academy. There I take a year group and teach them equine sculpture as part of the Godolphin Beacon project. So if you look in the picture, he's in the bottom left, and that horse head he's holding, he did actually do all by himself. Racing to School is a fabulous charity. You'll see the website address at the bottom of the picture. And it's one I'm personally delighted to support. It's one of the most worthwhile things I do every year. So I'm very much looking forward to the Racing to School Inspiring Young Minds Handicap, which, as we mentioned, will be at Wolverhampton this coming Monday, November the 16th. Also, as we mentioned earlier, the next race will be the Bailey's Horsefeeds Condition Stakes over 7 furlongs. That's at Chelmsford City on Thursday, November the 19th. And we'll look forward to reviewing the race at Wolverhampton and previewing the race at Chelmsford City next week. Thank you. Goodbye.